West Coast win the second half to salvage what looked like a certain bloodbath to claw it back to a standard 10-goal loss. Gold Coast did all the damage early, kicking 7-1 in the opening term before running away 59-point winners 2011, 131 to West Coast, 10, 12, 72. Today on the show, we'll break down what went wrong, we'll have a look at some of the positives, and have a look forward to what should be a winnable game, albeit against an in-form Kangaroos outfit. And thank you for joining us wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see us in the beautiful Halfway Studios for the first time. Massive thanks to the team for having us in this year, and I'm very excited for this to be our new home for the full season. So if you're watching along, you will notice a new co-host to the left of me here. I'm very excited to welcome in Ryan for the weekly match review show. Some of our earlier listeners might remember you did make an appearance after that narrow loss to the Tigers at the MCG last year. But it's good to have him back, though. He's got a great perspective on the footy. Definitely brings a little bit more passion and an unfiltered nature, which we love. So, Ryan, thanks so much for joining me, mate. It's good to have you back on.
Thank you, mate. Really appreciate it. And look at this sick studio. I'm not going to lie. Look, we got the logo in the background. We got the main man right here. And I'm just excited to get going for the season to review all the games and a really close one. Just kidding. But
unfortunately, we don't have a great game to review today. But as I said, some real positives toward the back half, which is great. I think the word you used, exciting, was just the right way to put it. I think coming into a new season, it's great to be in a new space. And this is what we've been dreaming about, really, I think, to have our own space and all these camera setups and everything like this. So very exciting, mate. It's good to have you alongside me today. And the game, as you touched on, it wasn't a close one, but there were some positives to take away with. Let's start just quickly off the top. Milan Murdoch with a debut for the ages, mate. How did you find his game?
How good was that? What a start to his career. 2 goals. Could have had 3, but absolutely influential in the game, Kurt. What do you think?
Taking a pay cut as well. I heard some very clever commentary there, the electrician. But no, it was great to see. And to be fair, since he got picked up, I've been pretty strong on the podcast with thinking that he should come in across that half-forward line. He just brings the hunger, as we said. It was noticeable right away with that chase down tackle on Mac Andrew and then letting him know, getting the 50. And I think probably the funniest moment of the day for me was then him going into bat for Mac Andrew after that, just making sure the boys didn't give away a 50 because he knew that he was going to be strolling in for his first goal. So second goal, as you said, probably could have had 3. I thought that he was electric today, and we'll touch on some of our better players later on. It wasn't a close game, but if you look at the stat sheet, Rhino, you will see West Coast won the second half. Do you think that came about more so from West Coast lifting, or do you think Gold Coast just fell away, took their foot off the gas a little bit, and potentially the blame for that outcome is somewhere in the middle between the both sides?
Oh, 100%. I think it's just in between. I think Gold Coast put their foot off the gas a little bit. Maybe it was 90%. I think we just got a spray at halftime, I reckon, for a mini. And he was like, what are we doing, boys? Where's the game plan? So I think we did execute in the second half, got the win in the second half, which we can take that into North. That's some positives that we've been waiting for. And I think we can get maybe a result next week. What do you think?
Well, I think you summed it up perfectly there with, to half-time, they must have copped some sort of spray, because we got some feedback as well over on Instagram, and a lot of people felt the same. It was very flattening to see. The boys really started to execute the game plan after halftime when the game was done. So the game's finished, no result can be made of that game, and yet you see them taking on corridor kicks, playing off quickly from half-back with the turnover. We see Brady Hoff take an intercept mark, move it quickly, down to Bo Allen on the wing, and then boom, 2 possessions into the forward 50, and giving Jake Waterman some really good looks at it in that second half. But it was too late, the game was done. So was it Gold Coast pressure slipping? I tend to think it probably was a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
But still, the boys can only play what's in front of them, as we said, and to be honest, we're very lucky that they managed to salvage something in that second half. Otherwise, I'm not sure what we would have been talking about today on the podcast. But there's no better way to introduce you to the listeners, Rhino, than with our new segment, Ryan's Rant. So just for some context, one of the huge benefits of having Ryan jump on the review panel is definitely his ability to get a little bit animated, which I know is something that frustrates the audience a little bit. I tend to sit on the fence and try not to dig into the boys too hard, but this is Rhino's bread and butter. He's very passionate, as I said before, and I've given him the floor right off the bat here each week just to tee off and have a crack at whoever or whatever he sees fit, whether it be game plan, coach, some players. We're not going to go too hard. We don't like having a crack or an unnecessary dig at players where we don't have to, but occasionally there are some really frustrating performances, as we know. So for the first time, mate, Ryan, the floor is yours. What have you got for us?
I've got 2 players on the chopping block today in Matt Flynn and Tommy Cole, but I won't get too hard on him. It's round 1. I'll go nice and easy. But honestly, start with Matt Flynn. Lost the hitouts by 33 in 63 ruck contests. Only the 18 hitouts for today. 4 hitouts to advantage. Only the 28.5% win for the day. Only 1 contested mark. And we brought him in as the number 1 ruck for the team from GWS, and I haven't seen him dominate ruck contests. I can remember the St Kilda game last year where he was pretty close against Rowan Marshall, and we won that game with him and Bailey Williams. But other than that, there's not been one performance I can remember off the top of my head where he's won the ruck pretty convincingly. But he can move on. It's one game.
Move him on, you reckon? Drop him.
No.
No.
I didn't say drop him. I said move on. Move on to the next game. I think he'll know that wasn't his best performance, and he'll definitely play better next week, hopefully against the North Ruck and Christian Seri, just an All-Australian.
Yeah,
so we'll see how he goes.
That should be an easier matchup. No, but it's a great point that you made, and we were speaking of this off air before. I think that coming into the season, we know that the jumping ruck rules aren't going to benefit Matt Flynn a whole heap when he comes up against some of the more athletic guys. But I think when you think about, you cast your mind to the broader AFL and you think about the player that is the worst suited to the new ruck rules, it has to be Jared Witts. And somehow he still managed to absolutely towel us up in there, gave their mids first look. And if we were ever going to have a chance in this game, we needed some first possession to come out of the stoppage, winning the footy. We'll talk about some of the contest statistics a little bit later, but we did okay. But then again, as you mentioned, Matt Flynn's one-wood is his work around the ground. We know that he's not going to win hit-outs very often, but for him to only take 1 contested mark on a day that we probably needed a few from him drifting back to help out the defence or even drifting forward to provide an option. We saw him down there a couple of times to no effect. Yeah. It definitely was a frustrating day, mate. Did you have anyone else in the gun that you wanted to get off your chest before we jump into the main episode?
Well, Tommy Cole.
Oh, dear.
I don't want to be too harsh, but it's been 10 years this guy's been in the league, right? Can you remember a game where this guy has actually been like the best on ground? Can you say that with a straight face?
No, but I don't think that, to be fair, I've been a massive Tom Cole defender as well, and I just don't think it's his role to be the best player. He plays a role that is going to make you look silly on the best of times. So keep that in mind, mate.
I do hear you, but just it's just frustrating sometimes. But I can see your point, how his role is probably the toughest role in the team. He's guarding multiple positions, running up and down the ground. But only the 1 tackle for him today and the 9 touches. I'd just like to see him have a bit more impact in these big games against big opponents. Yeah.
You're not alone, mate. There was so much feedback coming my way on Instagram with Tommy Cole at the forefront of it. So good to get that one out of the way early. I really look forward to Ryan's rant taking over throughout this season. And as you warm into the role, mate, it's going to be a very fun watch throughout the year.
All right, now it's time to take a close look at the top performances. What do you think about it, Kurt? On to our MVPs.
That's right, Rhino. Each week we'll note down our top 5 players and vote toward the Golden Wings MVP, as we did last year. Just gives us a chance to give some love to some of our better performers on the day before we do get bogged down inevitably in some of the more negative side of things. So we'll start with you, mate. Who did you have taking out your top 5 votes? I think that our votes were pretty similar.
Honestly, I think it was pretty close between these two for the top 5 points, but I just edged it to Devon Robertson for today. I think he was all over the ground, did the hard yards, put in a lot of effort, 17 touches, I believe, and it was like 12 contested, 12 tackles. What a great effort.
The tackles
from him.
was insane, and that's probably one of the most promising things to see. A lot of our players often, they can go missing in the contest, and when you're not winning the footy, you need to be tackling, and it's easy to sit there and say, oh, well, Dev had 12 tackles because he was second to the footy. But guess what? No. All of our boys were second to the footy, and he was one that was actually willing to chase, willing to tackle, and willing to try and hold in the footy. So big raps for Dev coming across from Brizzy as an SSP. There was mixed reviews about whether or not we wanted him, whether or not we should just let him go. Obviously, the delisting, do we need more delisted players? But obviously there is a big gap between the players who can't get a game in Brisbane's midfield and can get a game in ours, unfortunately. So I really like that, and I had Dev in for the 4 as well. Yep. Who did you have for your 4 votes, mate? Because he took out my top 5.
Milan Murdoch.
What a debut.
What a debut. 22 touches, 2 goals. What an unbelievable performance from him. 8 score involvements. Was everywhere around the ground. The cheeky fend off.
Yeah.
Sets it up to Harley. Harley gets the fend off to Noah. Was just influential throughout the whole game. His effort, his tackling, I don't know why we didn't bring this guy in earlier.
Oh, it's so good to see. And you're right. We've had the opportunity to bring him onto the list for a long time. And some of our Waffle faithfuls will be very, very happy with what they've seen, because a lot of people around WA football know that this guy can play. And I think we saw him come in and show that his size isn't a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage, the little fella. As I said before, he has access to the pill in ways that a lot of our guys don't. So clean on the ground ball, really clean in the contest, and he's able to get a little handball out of a pack that our bigger, more lumbering midfielders just wouldn't be able to do. So I think that he and Bakes are going to form a little bit of a formidable duo there, and potentially Jacob Newton, if he can come on as well, as some real dangerous smalls who just attack the contest really hard. And I thought that was awesome to see. Mate, we both agreed on our 3 votes as well. Jakey Waterman coming in with the 3, and I thought that he was excellent against a matchup, as we spoke about off air.
Yeah.
Absolutely towed up McAndrew, which is one of the tougher arse in footy. I think he's giving up about 10 centimetres, and McAndrew, obviously a serious player off half back. It was really good to see Jake hold his cool there for a while. He let his footy do the talking. Walked away with 3, probably should have had a handful.
Yeah.
And I thought that he was easily in our top 3 best for the day.
And I'd like what Mini did in the second quarter. He was sitting deep forward against McAndrew, and then they moved him to centre half forward during the game. That really opened him up, getting marks along the outside of the field and then setting up teammates, and also could have had 6 goals, mate. Could have had 6 goals very easily. So
that's right. And I love that you brought it up. It's going to be really hard to play key forward for West Coast this year. The entries aren't great. Obviously, we're coming up against some really good midfielders, and we're going to touch on a little bit later with the scoring chains and some of the team statistics. But you can win all the contests which you like, which we did. But if the entries are no good, you're going to struggle to score. And for Jake Waterman, it's going to be a long year down there with some of those entries. We know that he can pull a mark out of his arse sometimes, but it was great to see Mini, as you said, just free him up, send him up there. We see some of the better coaches do it. We see Chris Scott do it with Jeremy Cameron. We see Matty Nix do the same with Riley Thilthorpe as well. When your big key forwards are mobile, you can afford to move them up closer to the footy.
100%.
Let them take a big pack mark. Let them win some of the ground ball and get it going your way. And I thought that was an excellent coaching move. Mate, we've agreed again for the 2 votes. Who did you have down sneaking in there for the 2?
Well, how good is it to have our number 6 back, Elliot Yeo?
So good.
So good. 17 touches, 2 goals.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask for in your first game back after a long time injured. Just in the third quarter, so influential, got the 2 goals, looked very dangerous when he got the ball in hand, setting up teammates, everything about his game. That's just what you want to see from Elliot Yeo, just breaking out the game, setting up teammates, scoring goals. What more can you ask for from the big fella?
I was really intrigued to see him starting predominantly in the midfield as well,
100%.
which I think was a really good move from Mini in the end. It probably didn't pay dividends the way that we would have liked. But if you think about, geez, if he wasn't in the guts for that first quarter, what probably could have happened to us? It was great to see him throwing his weight around again. He looked a little bit more confident in his body. The 2 goals in close succession, absolutely showing off with his power. Yeah. That 50-metre came off the back of a really strong mark as well, so definitely not a gift there. And his roost with the first one, I wouldn't have been banking against him hitting that second one as well had he not got the 50. So I thought it was an excellent return for Yowie. Just so good to see him back in the team as well. For my 1 vote, I've gone along a similar vein with Jack Graham. I think that he worked his way into the game really well. Some of our listener feedback, we had some eyes on the ground with a few of our listeners who were at the game, which was great. And they said that the senior players really did come to play toward the second half and helped lift the boys across the line, obviously to win the second half, as we touched on. Just snuck in for the 1 for me. But I was really, really pleased to see who you gave the 1 to, mate.
The big man himself, Bo Allen. Unbelievable coming back from injury last year. Was really powerful in his running as well. I think he had 20 plus sprints in the game. Was really quick.
He's quick,
out
isn't
on the
he?
wing.
He just sort of gallops, doesn't he? Like his running, it's so powerful. And we saw him break through a couple of times and not quite be able to break through the tackle.
Yeah.
But in time, he's going to be able to make that work. And when he knows when to go, it's going to be hard to stop him.
And it was interesting to see Mini put him in the guts a few times during the game. He had like 7 centre bounces. But I don't think that'll be his position, but I think they were trying to do something in that second quarter to try and break the game open.
So was he tagging Took Miller?
Yeah,
that's the question, because we saw Mitch Woodcock post on Twitter that he appeared to be tagging him. And at first I was like, nah, he's playing half back and Took's playing half forward. But then next minute, in the centre bounce, I see Bo Allen, which I absolutely loved, I think.
100%. Long
term, we want him to be a midfielder. Is he going to be a midfielder? That's probably for our listeners to decide in the comments, I think. He's played, 8 games of footy. Right. But, geez, it was good to see him played really well off half back towards the second half when he sort of warmed into the game. He made some mistakes early, but it was good to see that composure piece come back in and used the footy really well, defended really well, and I was stoked to see that you had him in there for the one vote.
Yeah.
Some honourable mentions, mate. I had Bo Allen as an honourable mention for mine, but some others that we've got there. I think that Tyler Young deserves a mention. He had his critics online, which is probably fair enough. It wasn't a stellar game from him.
Well, the guy's replacing Jeremy McGovern.
Exactly. It's big shoes to fill. But with no Harry Edwards, no Sandy Brock, with some personal leave, and the coaching staff opting not to play Rhett Bazzo, which probably surprised me a little bit. Yeah. I thought that he held up really well, considering the entries that were given up. I didn't see him beaten one-on-one too many times. Did he spoil a couple of times when he should have marked? Yes, but these are all things that come with time. We know that he's had a very interrupted last couple of seasons. So I thought that was okay. What did you see from Archer Reid? Because it was a frustrating day in front of the sticks, but I thought he deserved a mention as well.
Well, you can mention the set shots, but honestly, it's his contested marks that I really like to see. Getting that one in the goal square, he just had the huge leap above the pack. That was powerful. Well, he's our tallest forward, and you sort of expect that, but he's still young, he's developing, and that's what you want to see, him taking those marks. I think the set shots will come, they'll come with time, but yeah, the contested marks is where you start. If you're getting marks inside 50, you're getting a chance at a goal, so that's what you want to see from the big man.
I feel like those were the marks that he was flying for last year and not bringing down, so to see him come away with a couple of them was really, really exciting, and a lot of people ask why he's being selected in the side, but that's the stuff that they're seeing on the track from him each week. Just some unbelievable marking prowess and really good skills, believe it or not. He was drafted as a very skillful kick and a good set shot, so hopefully we see that come to the forefront of his game moving forward, but it was good to see him clunking a few of those that he wasn't quite able to bring down last year. Jacob Newton, I know that we've got some mixed reviews on this. I thought that he was okay. Single-digit disposals, kicked a ripper goal.
I did like that ripper goal, I'll give you that.
How did you feel about his game, mate? Because I know that I know you wanted to play devil's advocate a little bit with this one.
Well, the thing is, right, you have two very similar players in him and Milan Murdoch. I know Jacob has a bit more prowess in the future, maybe. He's a lot younger than Milan, but Milan just looked like the upgraded version of Jacob Newton, what Jacob Newton could be.
Yeah.
But
so you think with potentially, we'll talk about team selection coming up, but you think that he could be one that makes his way out for some of our returning players?
Well, Harry Schoenberg had a great pre-season, and he was playing in the half-forward line for predominantly in pre-season, scoring a lot of goals in the intra-club game. I think he got 4 goals or something like that in the intra-club game.
There you go.
And he looked really dangerous up there, being really aggressive in his in the contest. And I don't know. I think with Milan there, I don't know if you can play both and leave Harry Schoenberg, who's shown a lot in pre-season and has AFL experience, out of the side. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting topic for discussion. We'll get into the selection a little bit later. Some of the other honourable mentions that I wanted to mention as well, just the 3 top draft picks. I thought Cooper Duff-Tyler, Willem Dersmer and Josh Lindsay all had some nice flashes. Definitely not the complete packages, but obviously it was a very tough initiation to AFL footy.
100%.
Away against the Goldie. We haven't even spoken about the conditions yet, but that played a big factor as well. Obviously, once the sun goes down over in the Gold Coast, it gets very dewy, and you see the Gold Coast executing skills really well with the damp footy, and our boys struggled a little bit. The cleanliness definitely wasn't there, but I thought CDT in particular, he's probably my favourite player, as I said to you off air.
Cool.
I just love the way this guy goes about it. You see some flashes, and you're just like, geez, when he is a complete player after a couple of pre-seasons, he's going to absolutely tear opposition teams apart. We saw a really nice mark where he just levitated in the air for that little bit longer than he needed to, just to make sure that he took it at its highest point there late on in the game. Couldn't execute with the set shot, but his skills around the ground, like, did you see a couple of times he got it on the wing, moved like a wingman, running along, took a bounce, I think maybe even, and he set up kicks into the forward 50 to hit up 100%. Jake Waterman. Mate, it was an absolute work of art. So I think that they had a great game. What did you see from Willem, Josh Lindsay and CDT?
Well, Willem's running for me was really impressive. When he gets the ball out on the wing, couple of bounces. He bounced one with his right hand, bounced it with his left hand. That just shows how versatile this guy can be. Going back, taking marks at half back or full back, looking really tall, taking some marks, setting up teammates on the wing, running prowess.
Some of his ball use was really nice, wasn't it? Yeah.
In that guy with a couple of pre-season, you say like Cooper Duff-Tyler,
when
he gets big and bulky.
A lot of feedback on Instagram saying that we need to draft an inside mid, mate. Once he puts on another 5 5 or 6 kilos of muscle. I'm not
He's
sure
right
how
there.
much he needs to put on, but he's Nat Fyfe reincarnated. It's actually scary. So really looking forward to seeing what Willem can do for the rest of the season. I definitely don't think that that's going to be the ceiling. We're going to see some really exciting games from him, but I thought it was a really nice way to start his AFL career, albeit in
100%.
really tough conditions. Josh Lindsay is one we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
We think he could potentially even be on the chopping block, which we would hate to see.
I would hate to see that.
But he looked really nice with ball in hand, did a couple of good things. It's going to be a little bit of a slower burn with Josh Lindsay. I think he has the ready-made ability to take a couple of games by the scruff of the neck. But just with the way that our team is set up and with our defence constantly under pressure, he's not going to get a whole lot of easy ball, which you probably need to make a real impact across half back early on in your career. So it's going to be an interesting watch to see. We'll talk about the selection a little bit later.
Yeah. Let's just have a quick look at the stat sheet. I know you're pretty keen to talk about the contest numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there were some really promising signs to come from that area of the game, which we'll touch on in just a second. Before we do, I just wanted to bring up a pretty damning stat, which I heard the commentators mention at three-quarter time. Metres gained by forward handball. Now, at three-quarter time, Gold Coast had gained 591 metres per handball. Let's pretend that you don't have the stat sheet in front of you there. What would you realistically expect West Coast to have, considering that they were still losing by a fair margin? How many metres do you think West Coast should have at the three-quarter time?
Well, we should have like 300.
Bare minimum, right?
Bare minimum.
We're playing the same game style. We'll touch on it a little bit later, but Andrew McQualter has done his apprenticeship at Richmond under Damien Hardwick. West Coast had -8 metres gained to Gold Coast's 591 at three-quarter time. So that's a 600-metre difference there, which is ridiculous when you factor in, as again I said, the teams are trying to play a similar game style. Andrew McQualter did his apprenticeship there under Damien Hardwick. They've brought segments of the game style to their new clubs respectively. And it begs the question for me, are we focusing too much on contest when the game is starting to drift towards a more free-flowing, open field transition game with the new lasso rule and obviously the new stand interpretation as well.
100%.
Seeing teams take it on quickly, the game's moving faster, there are fewer stoppages in general play as well, and we've seen the best clubs control the footy more than ever with Brisbane, Collingwood and Hawthorn playing that real
100%.
kick mark game
Sydney
style.
as well.
Sydney as well, and then linking up through the corridor with those forward handballs when the time is right. So in summary, we did all right in the contest numbers, which we will touch on a little bit later, but I just wanted to preface that you can go all right in the contest, and that's great, and that's been the focus this preseason, as we know. But if you turn the ball over going forward, teams are going to cut you up going back the other way because you're not set up, and they just have the skill to execute. And so I thought that was really damning to see that. But some of the contest stats there, mate, what do you have in front of you with some of the major KPIs? We know that Mini has had a real focus on contest and clearance this off-season.
Well, we can take some positives out of the game. 27 plus in tackles, 2 plus in centre clearances, only -6 in the total clearances and -8 contested possessions. But if you take that into the context of the full 4 quarters of the game, that's not too bad.
I think if you said that to us before the game, we'd probably take it.
100% would take it.
And you probably wouldn't think it's a 10-goal margin either, being only -8 in contested, +2 in centre clearances, I was really impressed with. +27 tackles is great. Yes, you can say we were second to the ball, but last year, for a lot of the time, we were second to the ball, and we still were way off on tackles, even losing the tackle count sometimes. So I thought that was great to see, and definitely a green flag for the pressure. I'd love to know where the pressure rating was. I don't think that we have access to that.
We were really high for most of the game. I think we were north of 150s for the majority of the game. I tried to find that, but I couldn't find any of that. But 100%, we were pressuring the whole game. Even when we were getting flogged, we were still there with our pressure factor and our pressure rating. So
that's right. And I actually noted down early in the first quarter when they got a run on with the first couple of goals. I think Ben King kicked a nice snap, which would credit to him. It was just a great snap.
Goal.
Got in good position. I think Tyler Young was out of position after leaving his man to make a spoil that ricocheted off an opponent's boot. So very unfortunate circumstances there. Just a good player and a good team. There's probably not much you can do about that one. And then the second goal as well, Christian Pachaka just skidding it forward, refusing to give in the contest. Not much you can do about that either. So a lot of their goals were coming through really high pressure scenarios, and they're just a good team. So they're going to have the odd highlight here and just do things that you can't do much about.
Right.
So when you factor all that in, I think that there actually was a fair bit that you can take away from this. And if we can hold our own in the contest like we did against a less skilled and a less well-drilled North Melbourne next week, you'd have to think that we're right around the mark.
Hope so. Well, with the Geelong result against Gold Coast, we're only about a couple points within that range of the ex-grand finalists. So I think we're right there.
We got a lot of feedback on Instagram about that, how
100%.
Not that far off the result that we saw in opening round with the Catters getting put to the sword by the Goldie as well. So promising signs there from the contest point of view, which I know many will be happy with, but the result obviously not going our way. So still plenty of questions for the senior coach to adhere to throughout the week.
All right, with changes potentially coming in next week, we've heard some listener feedback and we've got another new segment for the show, Kurt's Big Call. Now take it away, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. We've had your rant at the top, which was good, a little bit more reflective, and now it's time to look ahead and make a call or a suggestion that helps us moving forward. I've tried to go to work and I want to come up with something every week that is critical, analytical, and probably helps us looking forward to next week. And so I think for me, it's a pretty easy one to start things off. Josh Lindsay must be given main distributor duties off halfback. No more Liam Duggan taking kickouts. No more Ryan Marrick lining up for a cheap 1-2, only to sky it up the wing to an outnumber. If I see that one more time, I'm going to lose it. I think that Josh Lindsay, he's the best kicker of the footy club. It's what we drafted him for. I don't care that he's only played one game. I want the ball in his hands. Coming out of D50 at the very least, if he's on field, he needs to be taking the kickouts. Ryan, we think that his spot might even be in danger with Liam Baker coming back in. We hope that that's not the case.
Please, no. Please.
But geez, I saw a tweet and I had a few messages as well. And something that really upset me, and I lost it at this, to be honest, was Josh Lindsay had ball in hand in the goal square after a behind, ready to take the kick out. And we see Ryan Marrick floating in from 20 metres away, beelining him and forces him to give up the footy to take it, and then does nothing with the kick out.
Yeah.
That really frustrated me. We know that Josh Lindsay is a good user. Yeah. It's a good way to get him involved in the play as well. He's obviously going to struggle to find it a little bit in general play. Coming in his first game against a red-hot Gold Coast side, it really didn't suit him. So give him the kick-outs, get his disposal number up, get his confidence up. It's such a no-brainer to me. We got some listener feedback as well. I think it was Lewis said that McCarthy and Lindsay need to be splitting the kick-ins 50-50, and I think that's just has to be the case. You see 100%. Liam Duggan, he's the captain. He must know that his kicking is not up to standard. So why is he lining up to take kick-outs and take the responsibility when more often than not it's not working out well for us? It's just very frustrating to see. So a very minor gripe for me this week, but I just think it's such an easy fix and it's an easy walk-up win for us there. A few more effective disposals coming out of the back half, and we saw him. When he got his opportunity, he absolutely lay someone out, and the commentators couldn't believe it. It was like one of those pin drop passes where the kick's in the air and you're thinking, why has he kicked it there? And then all of a sudden it just works
right
out.
in the chest, right?
Yeah, so Kurt's big call for week one. A pretty cruisy start there for the new segment, but
easy,
Josh Lindsay needs to be the main distributor of halfback.
100%.
And he cannot be dropped next week. If that happens, we absolutely riot.
If that happens, we're riding on this podcast. I'm just kidding.
Okay, Rhino. We know that there are some big additions set to be available next week, as he touched on. Headlined by the co-skipper, Liam Baker, fullback Harry Edwards, and our new SSB signing, Harry Schoenberg, as well, who was in line for a debut before that suspension against Port, as we said. So we know that they'll want to load up for a win against North. Do you think that they'll all make their return to the side next week?
Well, it has to be. I think we have to have a little bit of change after that result in the first half. And Liam Baker walked straight in for Cole for me. Harry Edwards, this may be controversial. I think he goes in for Marrick. We need the three tall defenders in the team. And we got Lindsay, got Baker, got Tyler Young.
Starcevic still a little while away. But I think that Tom Cole for Liam Baker is a pretty easy swap. And then Ryan Marrick for Harry Edwards to give us a little bit more height.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if they'll do that. I think they might. I don't want it to happen, but I think they're going to take Josh Lindsay out, which would crush my soul.
That's what we're fearful of, I think. And even Liam Duggan could be a player who made way. A lot of feedback about that. Liam Duggan needing to find his way to the side. I don't think that that's going to happen, just given his co-skipper. But geez, if his form continues like that for the early part of the season, that might be a serious conversation that we need to have on this podcast. Let's hope it doesn't continue that way. Harry Schoenberg is probably the really interesting one. I think that coming back from suspension, as we said, he was in line for a debut that week against Port. But at the same time, Milan Murdoch had only just join the list.
Right.
And he wasn't having 20 and kicking 2 on
right.
his AFL debut. So I think he's going to make it difficult.
It's gonna be
Jacob
hard.
Newton is one that could potentially make way. Jamie Cripps, I think, is going to keep his spot across half forward.
Yeah.
But a lot of feedback about him. If his form continues and he's not able to hit the scoreboard, then potentially another tough conversation that we might be having.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what the listeners think about the selection there. Harry Schoenberg is going to be an interesting watch. We think that Harry Edwards and Liam Baker walk straight back in, which is definitely going to lift our floor and hopefully load up, as we
100%.
said, for a competitive hit out against North Melbourne.
Okay, let's quickly jump through some listener feedback to finish us off. Kurt, you put up a story on Instagram for our listeners. What did they come back with?
Yeah, absolutely. We love our listeners, and it was great to put up a little bit of a funny photo of you and I. It's good to get a face of the podcast finally for our listeners and have a little bit more engagement with you lot. It was awesome to see so much response, so much passion coming through. We obviously can't feature everyone, but there was a lot of love for Milan Murdoch coming through, and rightfully so. I think there might have been 30 for Milan by himself, which was pretty awesome. So we've obviously touched on his game right off the bat as well. Also, a lot of love for Bo Allen, which we love to see. We've spoken about his game a little bit earlier on in the show as well, but one that did catch my eye was from Cooper, who was at the game, and he mentioned that the mature age pickups all looked great and that the senior players really stood up in the second half. And as we touched on a little bit before with Jack Graham, Elliot Yeo lifting in the second half, it was good for these guys to get a little bit of a run. A few of them coming off interrupted pre-seasons as well. We forget that players like Ruben Jinby, Elliot Yeo haven't been training at 100% capacity throughout the summer. So it was good to see them just get some miles in the legs as much as anything. That's what round 1 was for us. We've spoken about it a little bit, but Gold Coast obviously had their first hit out last week.
Round.
And so we saw a little bit of cramp for our boys. They're going to be better for the run, especially up in Gold Coast. It's pretty tough conditions, pretty warm up there. So
humidity.
I thought the mature age players definitely more than pulled their weight in the second half, which was good to see. Hopefully that can continue on for round 2 against North this week.
All right, Jimmy, we played against a team that spanked Geelong. Good second half to make it respectable. What do you think about that, Kurt?
Oh, mate, it's a great point. And I think we touched on it a little bit prior. Like, we come in with all these expectations and we're like, oh, it's another 10-goal loss.
Yeah.
Gold Coast are flag favourites.
100%.
It's really important to remember that. And we're favourites for the Spoon. I personally don't think we're going to win the Spoon. We might talk about that in another episode.
Yeah.
But as we touched on off air, but I think it's really important to keep that perspective there. A standard 10-goal loss, I don't think it's the worst result, which really pains me to say.
Yeah.
But as we saw with that first half, it could have been so much worse. So that's worth keeping in mind. Jackson sent in the content kicks, lacking intent, not up to AFL standard. Too many players half-assing their disposal, which I completely agree with. How do you feel about that? And some of the skill level we touch on, not quite up to AFL standard, but sometimes it looks like mentally the boys just don't even believe that they can hit the target before they go to kick.
I think it starts 100%, like you said, it starts with the mental. Like, these players are so young, like they don't believe yet that they can hit these kicks, but they've just got to switch that flick on in their minds, and they got to think, so we got to get these handballs going forward, play to the style of play, go quickly, play exciting footy, play the transitional footy that Mini wants. And I'm sure the spray at halftime would have mentioned his game style and what he wanted out of these boys, and we did see that, but some of the kicks were really sloppy in that first half.
And so it begs the question, and we know that Hawthorn gets spoken about a lot, and I was watching them play and I was just fascinated with the way that they use the footy. Yeah. They're so happy to just take what's on offer. If there's a kick there, they'll hit it. Whether it is going sideways, they'll chip their way around, and then when the corridor opens up inevitably, or they get the footy in one of their best users' hands, they run for him, they have a system there and they present, which our forwards, quite frankly, just do not present enough
at all.
Which makes it really hard for our players with ball in hand to begin with. But we know that Hawthorn got clowned a lot when they were bad, that they would just play kick to kick too much, and it was almost a bit of a running joke. But now you see the game style that they're still using today holding up. So it just makes me question, do we need to work on our control a little bit better so that we are consistently turning the footy over, we win it back? Do we just need to hang on to it for a little bit? Run hard for each other and make the options. Like, not enough players thirst for the footy and actually want it in their hands, which comes back to what we're speaking about prior with the belief. The players just don't actually want the footy in their hands, so they're not working hard enough for it. And that's why you see players like Tom McCarthy, players like Milan Murdoch come in with the naivety to the AFL side, and they just want to make the opportunity work. They're running hard. They're getting on the end of marks, and they're able to use the footy going forward. And it's definitely something we need to look at. Stack17_ said 9 kids under 21, their first hit out for many of them as well. Gold Coast obviously coming off the opening round win. And I think that's so true. Got to keep that perspective. Mason sent something in as well.
Not a terrible margin in context, but still hurts to see us beaten so easily. What do you think about that, Kurt?
I think that's a great way to end. And as we said before, probably when you look at the margin, it could have been so much worse. So we're
100%.
taking that every day of the week, winning the second half, breaking even in a lot of the contest work and keeping it under 10 goals only just. We're definitely taking that against such a scary opposition. But seeing us beaten so easily in the first quarter especially.
That was tough.
But the first half, that's got to go. And so if we see that next week, there's going to be some real riot around WA, I feel.
100%. Yeah.
But as we say, it's a new week next week, coming up against North at home. It's going to be good to have footy back in WA soil. First time since State of Origin, really, that we've had a proper spectacle at Optus Stadium. So very much looking forward to that. We might be at the game. We'll see how we go. Rhino, mate, how do you feel? First podcast out of the way.
Keen as a bee, mate. This is so cool, dude. And appreciate everything that you've done in setting all this up. And this studio is so wicked, dude. Let's go.
How good is it? Golden Wingers, I hope that you've enjoyed the first match review of many. Bear with us. We'll get through some of the teething issues and we'll put together a very fun partnership for the season ahead. Looking forward to it. Make sure that you get around the show. Subscribe to the YouTube if you want to help support us and put a roof over our heads.
So you can see this amazing video.
A very quick subscribe to the YouTube channel is going to go a long way. Once we get over the 1,000 subscriber mark, YouTube are going to monetize us and pay us for the work that we do. Most of it can probably go towards covering the studio. So that would be greatly appreciated. It'll take 10 seconds of your time, if that. And once we get over the 1,000 subscriber mark, I'll never ask you for anything again. So much appreciated. We thank you for all the support. Thank you for the beautiful DMs and all of the feedback through the listener feedback. We'll see you next week to review, hopefully, a win against North.
Signing off.
Have a great week ahead, guys. We'll chat to you soon. See ya.
See ya.
Woo!
Hey.
So, boy.
Let's go.
That was so cool.
Fuck yeah.
That was awesome.
Let's go.